Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio. We're excited to welcome back travel writer and author Elaine Masters back on the show. Now go to her website, tripwellgal.com. You can follow her on social media as well. She's been on our shows over the years talking about destinations, everything from Japan to Ely, Nevada, small town Ely, Nevada. And she's also an author. She has written the book Drive Time Yoga. I remember that the very first time she came on the show, we talked about this, and it's an award-winning book for best audio. But welcome back, Elaine. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. Love what you're building.
Oh, yeah. We've got this new program, our Big Blend Club. So you're going to see a lot of more panel discussions for our audience to know of just people we know and like who've been on the show that we feel like, man, let's party. That's really it. We like to party as we travel, but everybody has so many experiences that I think, and I don't know if you find this as you travel, that we find more connections the more we travel, that we're
Mm,
more connected than we think. And
mhm.
I feel like if we do more travel, maybe we'll have a little bit more peace in the world.
I certainly have hold that hope as well.
Yeah, the hope. I know you had that thought,
Mhm.
that hope, and but I feel like there's so many connections and shared experiences, and people in life tend to do this thing where, hey,
Mhm.
I'm only interested in this, and only like, talk about this, and then you'll find out, oh well, I've did this over here, and they'll go, oh, yeah, I'm interested in that too. We kind of
Mm,
have that limited mindset. And so through travel and experiences, that's kind of what we're doing with all these new panel discussions for our audience. Now we have a lot going on. It's coming. It's
mhm.
coming. The solar
Yeah.
eclipse, we have a panel discussion you're going to be on
Ooh,
soon too. The solar
yeah.
eclipse.
Mhm.
So you're going to go to Mexico for that.
I am. I'm going to go to the Nayarit area and then to Mazatlan. I'm going to meet some family members there, and we will spend several days in that region, but we're specifically going to be right in the center of the strongest point of the path of the eclipse.
Now, don't you look at it. You know that, right?
I do.
I'm
We'll
just
talk
messing
more
with
about
you.
that when we get to the
I know,
eclipse.
I'm just messing with you a little bit, but I love that you're going, to Mexico for that. But let's start where did the first, do you remember your first road trip or travels? Do you remember like what was the bug that bit you? Like where was it? Like how did it
Ah,
all happen?
my parents were big time into road tripping. I'm old enough to remember the fake wood panel station wagon,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
and how my parents would pile us into the car and drive from Southern California to San Francisco many times over the year. That's where they met. That's where some of my mom's family settled in San Francisco. And
Nice.
we were in the Southern California suburbs when all this travel was taking place. We sleep in the back of the station wagon. At one point, my youngest brother was about 3 years old, and my father put a plank across going the widthwise of the car for him to sleep on. Yeah, I mean, it's totally illegal with what we do now. This is before seatbelts were mandated. We live to tell the tale.
Well, I remember growing up, in Kenya and South Africa, and you could be sitting in the back of a pickup truck and it was legal.
Yeah, yeah.
Now isn't it illegal to be in the back of a pickup truck like kids in the back if you're going down a highway and stuff? I think it
Unless you
is.
have a seatbelt on, and I have seen
In the
trucks with
back of a
seatbelts.
pickup? Now
But
that was
that's not what I remember either.
yeah, I think we kind of all piled in too in
Yeah.
places, and it
Mhm.
was fun. And I think the element of danger is always good too. A little bit of, that
Yeah.
there's always the element of danger in travel, right? And
Right. Right.
getting out of the comfort zone and all
Right.
of that.
Right. And I saw that also with my parents. We, at one point, took trips. We were driving across the border when it was really easy to do. And we'd go down through Tijuana and through Tecate with the car full of kids
I love
and
Tecate.
camp on the beach. Before
Mm-hmm.
Rosarito was really built up, we would stay
Yep.
on the beach that were still open to the public. And every time we went back, it was built up a little bit more. And one
Mm-hmm.
summer, we spent 3 weeks driving all the way down to Guadalajara, to
Oh
Mexico
my
City,
gosh.
Mazatlan, Acapulco. And you were talking about fear. My parents were not fearless, but my father had a sense of Spanish, and he would go in to the panaderias in the mornings, and we'd come out with a shopping bag full of pastries for the family. There were four kids and my mom and dad, and we would camp and stay in these little places where there were no other tourists. Having a flat tire in the middle of a jungle road
Mm-hmm.
where nobody's around and having to rely on others to help us. I learned that pretty early on, and we always were fine. I mean, we
Mm.
were very blessed and lucky. I don't think I would recommend that road trip with a bunch of kids today, but there are places certainly across the country that are bear traveling to, as you well know.
It's interesting growing up in Kenya, and this was in the 70s, late 70s, and I'm not dating myself or anything, but as a little
Why not?
kid, Nancy, I remember we had the van, the combi as we called it, and we'd go out in safaris, and we'd go down roads, and I remember, flat tire, which always
Yeah.
happened. I mean, we're talking about like if you crossed a river, they'd put you on this makeshift ferry, like not a ferry, a raft, but it was
Oof.
like barrels underneath it that floated on the river, someone pulling it, like I don't know, like this, you know, but the people out there in these remote areas would come and help you
Mm,
no matter what. But I remember getting a flat tire,
mm.
literally going around the bend, and there was a pride of lions just sitting there. And here
Oh,
we are, you know, hanging out, thinking, oh, ha, ha. We always got stuck in mud or whatever. But I think, I don't know about today, it depends on where you go.
yeah.
Like you're saying, there's still places, but I mean, we used to live in Ensenada and Rosarita Beach. I remember,
Oh, you know.
in the 70s, like I have family that have been going down, like you're saying,
Yeah.
60s, 70s, people would go down to Baja all the time from San
Yep.
Diego, LA, and it was like part of life. And then people retired
Mhm.
there, and that's, became like a little expat community in
Yes.
those areas. And life is simpler. And I think we tend to build things up into a little land of crazy. Just you know so I think it's time to, the more we travel the better. But I love your start now as an adult. Do you remember your first trip as an adult, going, okay, I'm getting on a plane, the plane, the
The one,
plane?
the plane, the most transformative one was when I realized that it's not difficult to travel internationally by myself.
Mm.
And or as an adult, as a young adult, I had a friend, and I was living in Juneau, Alaska. I had my
Ooh.
dream job at the radio station there, which was an NPR
And you were
station.
doing dramas. Yeah, you were doing like
I was doing radio dramas a
theater.
little bit
Oh my
later.
gosh,
Yes.
you've got to come on one of our crazy theater shows, but it's
Oh,
not going to be NPR style, I'm just saying.
uh, but these were the early days still of
Hmm.
NPR. And anyway, my friend convinced me to take a 6 month leave from my dream job to ask my boss for that. Insane, but I did it. Eventually, I had to be convinced, and we took off to see the world. And I remember all the preparation, all the angst, everything that had to be worked out before we left, and getting on the airplane and realizing it's all good. Even though I didn't have a set itinerary, I had an idea. We wanted to go as far as we could and back within 6 months on a limited budget. And at that time, you could do it. And ended up going all the way to Sri Lanka and working our way back with
Wow.
all kinds of adventures. It was amazing. But I survived. I remember seeing leopards in the wild,
Oh
uh,
my gosh.
all kinds of things that happened, but always came out fine. Lots of close encounters to things that could have gone sideways, but we were fine.
Do you think it's also having a sense of observation? Did travel heighten your awareness of things?
Absolutely. I think still that sense of wonder and curiosity is with me wherever I go.
Hmm.
I was just telling you, I came back from the rafting the Grand Canyon, which is
Yeah.
a crazy adventure. I was one of the oldest people on the trip, and it was fine. I had a fantastic time. I love the rapids, but being in that place. And especially, I will never forget the night we were sitting, we had just had a camp style dinner. We had our little tents, cots all set up. We were sitting in a group. There's no lights. You're in a dark sky place. The canyon walls, you could see the shadow of them on the side of you, and the Milky Way above. It was
Oh,
exquisite. And then while we're sitting there, someone goes, "What is that?" And across the canyon goes a train of lights. And it was Starlink.
no way.
Would never have seen that in any other place. So I'm just saying that if you open your eyes, you will net the depths of experience are unlimited. And
Yeah.
you constantly, if you just surrender to place and stay open and not worry about fear, I'm not talking about taking unnecessary risks. Stay with your gut, be prepared as much as you can, and then let go and let life meet you. So I had that amazing experience I would have missed completely unless someone had said, "Look up."
Yeah, that's really
It
funny
was
that you say look up because as hiking, right? We all love hiking parks and everything. We tend to always look down as hikers, where our feet is,
well, good
and
reason.
and whereas like when we're kids, we're running around and looking and not looking at where our feet are going, right? And so it's
Yeah,
funny how we
yeah.
tend to go this, travel will kind of, I think, if you remember to look up, you remember those things, you can have that balance between youth and then going, okay, I know too much now. Become too precautionary. We don't want to become too precautionary in, you know, if you when you start, if
And
you're
that's
always,
true too.
yeah.
I've started doing, yeah, I started doing some solo travels because my partner couldn't get away, or he had already been to some of the places I wanted to, or he wasn't interested in going to like India. He'd already been to Egypt. I went to Egypt by myself just a couple of months ago. And people said, "You did what?" I was doing research for a project I'm working on, long-term project, and I had some unfinished business I needed to address by putting myself in Egypt in these places
I love
and
that you said
staying open,
unfinished
like I just
business. I've got
mentioned. And
unfinished business in Egypt and I have to go by myself. People's minds
yeah,
are wondering, what did you?
yeah, I know.
Well done. Well done. See the travel writer in
Oh,
there. Yeah, well done. But yeah, I mean, going on your own, yeah, there's that. You've got to throw we're here once, or maybe we reincarnate, but do we have control over our reincarnation? Or, I'm just saying.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, I I don't want to have full control. I feel like I've learned at this point to surrender to, I don't know, uh, deeper knowledge, creation. I'm not a religious person. I was raised Catholic, but I've moved into a different kind of spirituality in the sense of I just want to open up to higher powers, or you know I've learned how to test and my with my heart and my intuition what works for me, and
mm,
to try to stay out of judgment and let the world come to me. So it's been a very interesting growth, I would say. And I don't know, I can't say where it's going, but I'm just saying I don't want to have full control. A lot of people want that. It takes too much energy. I won't get it right. I'm just not that kind of person. I need to stay open and to keep moving forward.
oh, I love that. I love that. I think travel
I
has
don't know
all
how
these
to explain it
lessons,
up.
right? Yeah, no, no. So tell everybody about, I know you've written books before, you've done, radio plays and theater and obviously a bunch of travel. You're still writing articles and everyone can find you on tripwellgal.com. But now I know
Mhm.
you're writing more than one memoir, right? Or is it one?
No, just one right now. I'm
Okay.
just going to take one at a time. I had to learn after years of like in I guess journalism and not really copywriting, but content writing, blogging, working on articles for other magazines. In that approach, the style has changed where you put yourself more in the story, even in newspapers now.
Mm-hmm.
And I, it came to me slowly, especially during the pandemic years and different writers groups I was attending online, like everybody doing something online. I learned that what memoir really is. I had thought it was something that was very self-serving, vanity, all that stuff. But I've learned that I'm now in a critique group, and I'm also in a memoir certification process right now
Oh,
that's helping me to immerse into what that really means to write a memoir. And it's been a whole process of honing down the stories with one particular thread. I mean, this is, I guess, obvious to everybody who reads a lot of memoirs, but I hadn't for years, and now I'm finding it's a challenge, and it's wonderful to be learning new skills. And this one is about, it incorporates travel, it incorporates a series of events in my life that are off the wall, unexplainable in a linear sense, but have
cool.
led me to where I am. And I'm hoping that when I get the book finished and out in the world, that it will encourage others to perhaps approach things in a little bit more of an open way as well. Let the world come to us. We don't have to take it all on. We're so product oriented that it can be crippling in a
Mm.
lot of ways, especially for someone like myself. I can't say what's right for everybody, but for myself, that's what's worked.
Well,
If it makes sense.
I think, yeah, yeah, because people identify with things. That's why stories are so important. And I think that's why, like, even as we move into doing more panel discussions and conversations
Mm,
on shows, it's about giving three or four, five sides to a story. So someone may not have resonated here can resonate there and find that identity because no, we're not all the same, but we'll
right.
align with someone's personality or experience and grow from that and stories. And that's so interesting about the travel writing because like Nancy, she was writing newsletters, and that's how she ended up in Africa. And she was writing all the
Mm,
animal stuff, and ended up working with Joe Adamson and all that in Kenya because of her art and all of that. But she was writing for newspapers when she would go over, and you did not put yourself in there. I mean, even right now in media, now we have the big drama going on, even on
yeah.
news journalists, like you're not allowed to have an opinion. And there's stuff where you want the news and then you need to say, okay, here's my opinion. This over here sucks or it doesn't or whatever it is, right? So it's kind of
Mm,
this weird, like you're reading someone who's just stating the facts, ma'am, not that's all you're supposed to do. But travel is about an adventure and how you got through it.
mhm.
And it could have been like, oh, we went through hell with this tire, and then the end of it, holy cow, those lions could have eaten us, but they didn't. And then we sat just around the corner. I mean, literally around the bend, and
Mm,
spent an hour hanging out with the lions. Going, you want to get out and play with the tire now? No, but so it's I I think it's interesting because if you if we didn't write about the tire and the lions, you would just go, you could see lions in this park, and they're
yeah,
beautiful, and describe the lion. Now, if you didn't put in the story about breaking down, would it have been as enticing
it would be
without that
less
personal?
universal. It wouldn't have the
Yeah.
emotional connection. That's an important thing for a reader. We're
Hmm.
bombarded. This is a trope, but we're bombarded with so much information and so many facts and so many visual stimulation, so much visual stimulation that we need to have a focus in order to get the story out and to
Mm.
resonate with people. And that I think is through a sense of feeling and universality. Who hasn't had a flat tire or been part of that? Who has ever driven a car or ridden in one?
I've had
um,
truckers help me with flat tires.
yeah,
Two trucks,
fabulous.
two trucks, those giant ones with cattle in them,
Oh,
which I always go, oh, the poor cows. And then they were so nice and they helped me. And,
oh,
and you had this conversation. And I think, that kind of thing, we're really lucky. And those are those moments where you go, man, humanity still exists no matter what the news
yeah,
says. Humanity, if you get out there. And so those are things. So I love what you're doing about this memoir side because I think it encourages people to go, you know what, she got through it. I can do it.
yeah.
And those stories. And also in the world of artificial intelligence,
Mm,
haha, what do you think? How important is memoir now? You know what I mean?
right. Hello. Who has the memories, right? Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
very interesting thing. I have just started dabbling with how that can be used as a tool in
sure.
writing for various forms of writing. Like I'm writing up some of the stories of my experience in Egypt. So I said, well, what would, you know, chat AI tell me about the top things to do in Egypt? And there was a list. It came up in just a flick of an eyelid, and it was very interesting. And this is what's happening in the travel sphere. People are doing that, and then they work off that list. Well, they miss so much. And they end up in the same places as everybody else and wonder, why is that so crowded? Story is so important in order to help you um, prune to find the things that really resonate with you as a traveler and on the trips that we take, and time and money and being there. It takes so much effort and expense to be able to travel, and you want to make the most of it. How are you going to make it work for you? And just relying on a, a robot to give you information, and that it's also drawing from a couple of years ago, because it can only
Yeah.
shoot out as much as it's been given.
It's what other people have put in and all it's like
Exactly.
Google gone. Hey, I find it's going to be interesting to see what happens between AI and Google and
Yeah.
all of, yeah, what's going to happen? Is this the new search engine? And everybody's battling over stealing content, basically, right?
Right.
To return it out there. But like if you go, like, okay, I was down the streets and, walking in the Mecca of Morocco. Like I'm out and, this guy was there and he had this mint tea and he just had come in with fresh mint and made some mint tea. Was he there every time? But I had this mint tea in this conversation. That means more to me than,
Mhm.
and I've never had mint tea in Morocco, but I've always wanted to. you know,
I want that experience
I
too.
do. Don't, yeah, I love mint tea, um, but
But
you
you
know what
see
I
what
mean?
you just did? You
Yeah,
just mentioned sensory experience. You were walking, you were touching things, you were smelling the tea, tasting the tea, you were looking at this person who's helping you and looking where you're going. A robot can't do that.
exactly. So that's why I think what you're doing, writing memoir, that's important. That's going to be the next thing that counteracts AI.
Well, I hope so. I don't know.
I didn't
Who
quite think
can
of that
say where
until
we're
you were
going?
on the show here. I'm like, you know what? This is something that we really need. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to be aware, stay aware, and not just fear it. I think we can't just trust government and agencies to do the right thing. This has just been thrown into our laps,
What? Are you
like it or
kidding me?
not.
What? I can't trust any government anywhere in any country for anything. Like I'm not yeah, well, yeah. You
But
can't
that's
because
another discussion.
yeah,
I think
that's a whole other
we
I'm
need
like that's our
those.
rants, raves and rock and roll show. Like we don't even do that anymore because well we kind
Oh,
of do, but that's a whole other drama,
yes, it
but
is.
it's true you can't have people dictate your life.
You can't. No, you can't. And at the same time, I've also seen how having structures can help us with experience too. So from a child having rules and regulations it needs to learn in order to be able to
Sure.
grow and be part of society, having I do believe we need government. We need some kind of
Yeah,
rules and regulations to
sure.
help us. I mean, there's so many of us, and we need structure in order to function as societies and communities. At least I do. That's much I can say. I'm not going to go out and live in the desert, and I applaud people who do, and I'm totally enamored with talking to them too.
Yeah, and no, but I agree with you. I mean, government is there for regulation, and I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not an
yeah,
anarchist or anything like that. But
yeah.
you've got to be involved. You have to be
Oh yeah,
involved, and I think it's
yeah,
about being involved in life. You can't complain about places and where you live or community if you don't get involved. You can't just
right,
wah wah wah, or get
right.
angry. You have to get involved, and I think traveling makes you really understand places where you can go to places that they're not, you can tell, oh, there's no pride in community and like San Diego, like Encinitas, where, you live in San Diego and Encinitas. I remember when we first got to this country and started the magazine in San Diego.
Ah,
And DEMA, as the Downtown Encinitas Main Street Association, was just forming and working with the Main Street Association. And the first thing was putting flower baskets up and we'd go to these meetings every week, and and I was so scared. I was so young and like so scared to even stand up and say my name. Like I know that sounds really weird, but
No,
anyway,
you have to
I was
start
like 19
someplace.
going, I don't know these people. No, I was a little older than that, but it was interesting because watching Encinitas go through this progression of, I mean, it's always been a community, but it's a beach community. It's relaxed, yet at the same time, it's got its, unrelaxed side too. You know what I mean? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? There's this balance that you need to find.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they did it. And it started with flowers. And I'm like, well, this is cool, man. And they had a cool
Hmm.
bakery. Go Peter Norby. Um, and they had like, all these amazing things. And it was these discussions of what they want to become. And I just remember going, I didn't realize how that would teach me so much later in tourism and travel
Right.
and the community connection to tourism and travel is such a big deal. But it
Hmm.
started with flowers, and you could see the pride in people about the flowers and the flower
Hmm.
baskets. And now everywhere, every time Nancy and I go somewhere, we see flower baskets. We're like, community pride,
Yes,
caring,
yes,
beautification means that. It means
yes.
taking care of things. And yeah, it's just an interesting thing to kind of be part of when you think about the community spirit. And I think that's not part of travel. Not everyone
Right.
does the flower baskets the same way.
Right, right, right. Yes. Someone's flower basket could be a roundabout like they have in New Zealand, you know. It's just they they decided that this was going to be the way that they would make it easier for people to get from one part of town to the other. And they're
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah. But I wanted to say that one thing about community pride is that it can be expressed in so many different ways. And we're so fortunate that we can afford in communities here to do these beautification projects. And yet I have been in villages, say in Mexico or in the Philippines, where the streets are swept clean every morning, that people come outside and take care of their stoop. In a village in India, they wash things down as best they
Oh,
might
yes.
not have anything else, but this is what they do. And you hope that the city fathers and mothers that are behind the organizations, share that pride and help to instill it. But I also have seen in other places where we, as the Western world, have exported some of our problems, like the plastic waste that I experienced on the streets in Lembe and in Indonesia, where they don't have a tradition, or they didn't when I was there, of regular trash removal. It just, you
Hmm.
threw things in the stream from the days when you were eating off of banana leaves, and now you're eating out of packages of potato chips and stuff, and you throw the papers in the stream and they get washed away. Well, we know where that ends up, and they end up on the beaches. And I'm not criticizing the people, but I'm just saying we have a responsibility when we travel to see, when I come home, how important it is to take care of our own spaces, and how, if we have the opportunity to work with others in other places around the world, to help them in any way we can as well.
Hmm. I think that's it. When you travel, you understand the greater community and the connections.
Yeah.
We did full circle. Look at this. That's how we started off.
How about that?
Yeah, but it's true. It's when you travel, you realize that we are connected in so many ways, and you start to understand why there's problems. Where when you travel, and I wanted to touch on this too because I think you really get this, is travel is not just seeing the monuments, and it's not just seeing those, famous sites like the Louvre, which obviously I want to go to, but it's um it's exactly seeing what you're seeing the real stuff, right?
Mm,
How, is that, potato chip bag going down the river.
hmm.
So when someone gets mad at people and go, "Oh, well, they're just this way," you can go, "No, they're this way because of
Yeah.
generations of doing something." And,
Hmm.
when we lived in Mexico and south of Ensenada by La Bufadora, I'm sure you've been to La Bufadora, the blowhole, that
Yes,
area. Yep,
yes.
that's where we used to live. And at that time, they were excited because they were getting things like Pizza Hut and
Oh,
Costco, and there was a thing about it, a new airport, and we're like, "No, no." And they're like, "We want what you have over there."
yeah.
And it is our country and we want to progress. And we're going, "It's not progression." It's not, you know.
And
But,
they will learn.
so there's that communication. We'd have these conversations, and it was like, all right, it is their country, and you
Hmm.
you can't tell somebody what to do with their country and then live in it or visit it. It's their country, but
Yeah.
they thought that was civilization when we were there at that time. That makes
And yeah, and we
that's
thought that was,
progression. Not
yeah, we
civilization,
had,
but progression. That's the wrong word.
I understand what you're saying, and I've seen the ravages of some of that too in different places where some of the big box stores are moving in, and the little tiny markets, how are they going to survive? We are luckily an adaptable species as much as possible, and
Yeah.
especially economically. And but I think that's going to become more and more important as we go forward. And I certainly, it's been an education for me to understand the intrinsic colonial points of view that I have grown up with. That
Oh yeah.
um, and there's this, the white savior complex and all of that. I don't want to participate in that. I want to learn from the places I go to, and not that I'm bringing in something that is going to help them necessarily. I'll do what I can, but I want to do it authentically.
Yeah.
So I've been looking for more experiences in travel to be able to do that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I know that you're big on sustainability as well and how we can travel better. We
Mhm.
shouldn't travel is transformative. It's regenerative if it's done in the right way. We should be
Mhm.
adding to a community, not taking away or
Yeah.
giving them something they don't want. If we add, it should be positive. And that I don't mean it in just in dollars and cents.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's
But there's that too, when we
oh, they
can, like,
need that. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
yes, yes. I mean, I'm concerned about the future of tourism, but just staying aware and conscious of what can I do. But when went to Egypt, I made a very conscious decision to take a certain amount of money. I usually go to one of these places and I will buy my Christmas presents. And so I
Mhm.
share those with the family. But I try to travel light too. And I realized on this trip that my partner had gone to Egypt 10, 15 years ago with his kids. He brought home all these souvenirs. I don't need them. We have, the papyrus, painted papyrus, and things like that already in the house. So I realized I don't want to buy souvenirs on this trip. I bought a few little things, but the rest of the money that I would have spent, and this I can say as a privileged white American, I took and I put it into cash, into Egyptian pounds, and I just tipped because their culture depends on that. And it
Okay,
was
yeah.
something that I usually don't do a lot of. But one thing the pandemic has taught me is that we need to support the people that are serving, providing service, whether it's hospitality, the foods we eat, because they're not getting, and often living wages. And I would talk to the guides and the tour operators and the bus drivers when I could about what what's the situation for you and your family now. And it has changed, and they have adopted more of the American lifestyle where people depend on tips for part of their
Yeah.
sustenance.
Yeah.
And so I was very happy to, as much as I could, offer a cash thank you,
Mm,
sincere thank you, not just leaving a tip and walking away, but letting them know that this is just part of my appreciation. And
mm.
and I feel blessed and a lot of gratitude that I was able to do that. And at the same time, I'm traveling as a very budget trip as
Sure.
much as I could. So I would like to do more, but I think it's important to find a balance there between buying the services, paying for the services, the foods, getting them on the street, working with locals as much as you can, and then offering them a token of appreciation as much as we can as well. I think too often we forget that. We just think it's a given and that
Yeah, yeah.
they're on salary and they'll be taken care of. And it's not always the case.
And each place is different. So like you
Yes,
found out what they needed and sometimes it's food, sometimes it's pencils and paper, sometimes
yes, yes,
every place is different and just to see what you
yes,
can do to give back, to be part of it. And that
yes.
means you're part of the community.
I'd like to think so. And
Yeah.
and I want to support more slow travel as much as I can to be able to be part more of the
Mm,
to be more a part of a community.
awesome. Elaine, it is so good to have you back on the show. We can't wait for panel discussions. The solar eclipse is coming soon. So,
Mhm.
the conversation as well. But the eclipse is coming. April, it's April, right?
It
2024,
is.
that people
It
should
is.
be
I think it's
aware.
the 8th of April, somewhere right
Yeah.
around there.
Whoa.
Yeah, very exciting.
Woohoo. Very cool. So everyone keep up with Elaine at tripwellgal.com. And what's the best place on social media for people to follow you?
You will find me under my name, Elaine Masters. You also find me under Tripwell Gal, and my old moniker on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, was Trip Wellness.
X
Um,
X
and I
marks the
learned pretty
spot.
quickly I'm not a therapist. I am a creative, so I went with Tripwell Gal.
So very cool. Very cool. Good to have you back on, and we'll talk soon.
I look forward to it.
Thank you, everyone, for listening here to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com.